Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. Today will be a presentation on the United States of America, or the US as Americans like to call it. Before I begin, just a reminder for you to please take notes as you listen and watch. What is interesting to you and why? What is new to you? What is some information about the US that you learned today that you didn't know before? And maybe what parts do you want to know more about in the future? All right, the agenda for today. I will give a brief self-introduction and then talk about 4 different aspects of the United States: the history, a short history, the geography about the different areas, the culture of the USA and different aspects of that, and finish up with some interesting places in the United States. To introduce myself, my name is Chris Mattson. I'm American. My home state is Arkansas. Where is Arkansas? Do you know? Can you see it on this map? It's in the south. It's close to Texas. It's on the Mississippi River. On this map, it is orange. Do you see it? It's right there. So my hometown is named Hot Springs. So my next question for you is, how do you say hot springs in Japanese? If you said onsen, yeah, you're right. So my hometown is near the center of the state. This is the downtown area called Bathhouse Row, and these are called bathhouses or onsens. They are over 100 years old, some of them, and there are a few bathhouses still open today, so you can go to Hot Springs, Arkansas and take a hot bath. All right, let's begin the first part of this presentation, the history of the United States. It's a young country compared with other countries like Japan, but the history is actually kind of complicated. But I will give a short version of the history of the US. So the good place to start is with the Native American population who came to North America about 25,000 years ago. By the time that Europeans came to North America, there were over 500 tribes of Native Americans all over the continent. Many tribes are still together today. Some people live on Indian reservations, which is a special area just for Native Americans. So here is a picture of a powwow, a Cherokee powwow or festival. Let's talk about the Europeans. The Europeans arrive first in 1492. The Italian explorer Christopher Columbus came to reach North America first. Then, many years later, in 1620, the first group of English colonists came and landed at a place they called Plymouth Rock. They left Plymouth, England, and landed in North America. So these are the original 13 colonies, basically the current east coast of the United States. And these states are still called New England. This whole East Coast is basically called New England. America started out as a colony of England, and it was controlled by the King of England. But by the 1770s, America wanted independence from England. So they fought a war. In the Revolutionary War, Americans and British fought, and in the end, America won the war and won its independence. George Washington was an American war general and then became the first American president after that. The United States was founded as a democracy, and the leaders were influenced by the democracy of ancient Greece and the Republic of ancient Rome. They liked Greece and Rome so much they even copied the building styles. So if you go to especially Washington, D.C., you can see lots of buildings with Roman and Greek architecture. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. This is a famous line from the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson. And this is still a common ideal of American culture, but back then it wasn't true for everyone. In 1776, women were not equal to men. Women did not get the right to vote until 1920, many years later. Also in 1776, Native Americans were also not equal. They received official citizenship only in 1924. So as the English and other Europeans came to America, they pushed the Native Americans further west off of their native land. And the other major problem with this is slavery in the US. Millions of African slaves were forced to work in America starting in 1619 with the Atlantic slave trade. And of course, black slaves were also not equal to white men. Slavery only ended after 200 years with the US Civil War in 1860. So Thomas Jefferson's line that all men are created equal is a strange one because it just wasn't true at the time that he wrote it. So let's end this part on history with a little bit about the American flag. Question for you. How many stars are there on the flag? I just covered them up. How many are there? Also, how many states are there in the United States? The answer to both is 50. 50 stars and 50 states. As for the red and white stripes, the 13 stripes represent the 13 original colonies. That's that New England area I showed you earlier. The red represents bravery in war, and the white represents purity and innocence. Okay, with that, we will end our portion on American history. Let's talk a bit about the geography of the United States. So the United States is over 3 million square miles, or almost 10 million square kilometers. And by the way, the USA uses the imperial system, which is miles, but also uses kilometers to measure distance. You can see an example of this in cars. When you drive a car, the larger number there on the speedometer is miles per hour, but you can also see kilometers per hour. So there's a mix of systems used. Here you can see Alaska, which is the largest state by size, but by population is actually the smallest state with the fewest people. It's very far north. This map you can see the size comparison between the United States and Japan. The United States is usually divided up into these different regions, 5 different regions. You have the Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, Southwest, and West. In the Northeast, you have locations like the Appalachian Mountains, which run all the way from the south through New England. In the Southeast, it's generally very hot and humid, and this is Louisiana and the Louisiana Bayou. Here's my home state, Arkansas, in the fall. The southern U.S. grows cotton, soybeans, and rice. There are a lot of farms in the south. The Midwest, this area is mostly very flat and has lots of farms. Corn and wheat is grown in the Midwest. The Southwest is generally hot and dry. There are deserts here. In the West, one of the main features on the West Coast is the Rocky Mountains. This is the biggest chain of mountains in the US, which stretches all the way from Alaska down through America into Mexico. Here is the Olympic National Forest in Washington State. It rains so much here that this is actually a rainforest. So this will end the geography portion of the presentation. Now let's move on to the culture of the United States. There are a lot of different aspects of American culture I want to cover. There's the food, entertainment, sports, communication style, core principles and values of Americans, American politics, social class and mobility, and diversity. America is a multiracial society. Let's talk about food culture. If I say American food, what food do you think of? You know, hamburgers, french fries, pizza, cola, things like that. But the US also has a lot of regional food variety. In the Northeast, there's clam chowder and lobster rolls. The South has barbecue, cornbread, coleslaw. This is a favorite of mine. And on the West Coast, there's a lot of vegan and vegetarian foods. Because America is multicultural, there are a lot of international foods you can find in most places. Mexican food, or Tex-Mex as it's often called, Italian food, Chinese food. You can find these anywhere in America, as well as Japanese food is becoming much more popular these days. Indian, Thai food, and a lot of other types of foods are very popular as well. This has always been true in the larger cities, but I think now even in small towns you can find a lot of variety. Let's talk about entertainment and arts. You have, first of all, Hollywood movies. Los Angeles is the center of American filmmaking for over 100 years. American music, certain genres like jazz, blues, hip-hop has come from America. And then you have Broadway in New York City, is also very popular. American TV shows are popular around the world. You have things like The Simpsons and Friends. Visual arts from artists like Jackson Pollock, Andy Warhol, and American writers and literature from authors like Ernest Hemingway, Toni Morrison, and F. Scott Fitzgerald. Let's talk about sports. So if I say American sports, what do you think of? Maybe you think of baseball, which is called America's pastime. And currently, we get to claim Shohei Ohtani as American. Also, American football is the most popular sport. Every year, millions of people watch the NFL championship Super Bowl game. Basketball, both college and NBA basketball, are very popular. Let's talk about American values. So these are some of the aspects of American society and the American way of thinking. Democracy is considered most important, that everyone has a voice in the government. Equality, equal rights for everyone, although, as I said earlier, this has not always been true. Individualism, self-reliance, and personal success. Hard work, work ethic, social mobility, the American dream of rising up in society, and diversity. America is a multi-ethnic, multiracial society. If you visit America and talk with Americans, it's good to know the way that most Americans usually communicate. Not all the time, but pretty commonly. For example, directness. Americans say or ask what they want to say. Another aspect is informality. It's normal to use people's first names, even if there's a big age difference. Even talking to your professor or your boss at work, people used first names very commonly. And friendliness, often open and welcoming to strangers. Chatting with people you don't know is common. Maybe you're at the supermarket or the convenience store and you chat with the clerk for just a moment about the weather or something like that. This kind of thing is very, very common in America. Let's talk about American politics. So very briefly, there are two main political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. The Democratic Party is generally more left-wing or centrist, while the Republican Party is more right-wing. Examples of Democratic presidents, you had Barack Obama, and recently Joe Biden. Republican presidents, George W. Bush, and currently Donald Trump. So many Americans also have strong opinions about politics. Every 4 years there is a presidential election. There was one in 2024, and there is a lot of debate. Everyone has an opinion. I also have an opinion. For example, in my opinion, Donald Trump is an authoritarian. He is very clearly the worst president in the history of the United States. Trump and the Republican Party are causing a lot of harm to America and the world. So Donald Trump has done a lot of terrible things, too many for me to go into right now. He will leave office in 2028. Let's talk now about multiculturalism, which is an important aspect of American culture. Here's a question. What is the official language of the United States? If you said English, of course, sorry, you're wrong. The United States has no official language. When the United States was founded back in the 1700s, one of the main ideas was that people from other countries would be welcome. So this is a quote from George Washington. He said, "The bosom of America is open to receive not only the opulent and respectable stranger, but the oppressed and persecuted of all nations and religions." So the language here is a little bit difficult, but what he's saying basically is the U.S. welcomes not just rich and important people, but also welcomes poor and powerless people too. If you know the Statue of Liberty, the inscription on the Statue of Liberty in part reads, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore." In other words, all are welcome in the United States. For a long time, Americans have disagreed about immigration laws and policies, but generally there has been an acceptance of foreigners coming to the United States. The current political administration and president thinks he can deport legal immigrants and even citizens to other countries, but he's wrong about that. This infographic shows how the immigration population has changed over the years, over the past over 100 years actually. If you look at the bottom numbers, that's the year going back all the way to 1900, and back then most immigrants to the United States were from Europe, from Germany, Italy, Ireland, Canada as well. And then over the years, starting in around the 1970s and 1980s, other countries' immigrants became more common, like Asia Latin America, Africa. Diversity is not the same in every state. There are, as you can see with this map, some states with more diversity, some states with less. The darker green colors are states with more diversity, like California, Texas, Florida, and then the lighter colored yellow states have the least diversity, places like Iowa, Montana. Okay, let's look at some examples of American multiculturalism. Let's talk a bit about America's little countries. In California, there's San Francisco's Chinatown, the largest in America. New York has Little Italy. Miami has Little Havana, which is a large Cuban population. There's Little Tokyo. There's one in New York City, as well as a Little Tokyo in Los Angeles. Each year in cities all over the US, there are multicultural festivals, which is another example of multiculturalism in the United States. All right, so that concludes the portion about American culture. I want to finish this presentation with just a few unique places in the United States. If you ever go, maybe you can visit these places. So the first unique place is the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Very much worth visiting if you haven't been there before. The Grand Canyon is around 70 million years old. There's Times Square in New York City. The name comes from the newspaper, the New York Times, which used to have an office there. Do you know where this is? This is the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri. This arch is 192 meters tall, and there is an elevator inside the arch. You can go up through the middle of the arch and see the observation at the very top. And here is the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Washington is the nation's capital, but it is not a state. The District of Columbia is a special district. It's quite small. This is the Smithsonian Institute, and it's the largest museum in America. Art, science, history, there are actually 17 museums all together. It's a very, very big museum complex. And some natural beauty with Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. It spreads across many states. All right, let me sum up what I've talked about in this presentation. I went over a very brief, short history of the United States. Then I talked about the geography. I talked about the American culture, and showed you a few interesting places that you might find in America. So, thank you very much for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a few new things.